Like you have your brother and sister firefighters back if you're complaining about being writ. How about you show the incident commander how motivated you are and how trustworthy you are, and when he assigns you writ, you turn to you guys, hey guys, we got the writ assignment. Let's get it done and get your equipment out there and get it staged and get ready to go and be the best writ team that you could possibly be. Yeah. Whatever you're doing, be the best at it.
Yeah,
100%.
Responses, engine 5, engine 3, engine 1, ladder 3, ladder 2, rescue 1. We've got smoke showing. Division 1, you're on location, box 23, reporting smoke showing 727.
JobTlks podcast members do not represent the cities and towns they work for in their views and opinions. They are views and opinions that belong to us only. We are not here trying to be the experts or tell people how to do their job. Our goal with this show is simply to facilitate knowledge sharing.
So I'm actually going to improv 2 videos here because one shows that collective suffering.
Yep.
Nick's rolling his eyes. They're both very short.
It's going to be another expensive episode.
Another expensive episode.
Barry just loves racking up the bill. And there'll be links to these videos.
No, not in this one. No, not in this one. But I think it highlights, one, that collective suffering and how that forges an effective team. Yeah. So one's comical, and then one is kind of the end state of dealing with poor leadership, which is building an effective team.
I'm gonna say something. Chill. Chain of Winners. What is it? Mission to speak, sir. Mission granted. Sir, we got 9 companies, sir. We do. Well, how come we're the only company marching every Friday night, 12 miles full pack in the pitch dark? Why do you think, Private Randleman? Lieutenant Sobel hates us, sir. Lieutenant Sobel does not hate Easy Company, Private Randleman. He just hates you. Thank you, sir.
I love that.
So there's the comical part, and there's a couple points from this, but this is where you really see the team coming together despite ineffective leadership.
Why are you here, Private Gordon?
I want to be in the airborne, sir.
I don't believe you. Why are you here, Private Gordon?
I want to be in the airborne, sir.
You have 15 minutes to the top and back, and I will be watching you. What are you waiting for?
Has the finest performance record in the entire 2nd Battalion.
So, a very familiar show that I think a lot of leadership lessons can be gleaned from. Obviously, the example of Lieutenant Sobel,
fantastic,
being
leader.
An ineffective leader.
Oh.
But I think, well, that's why he stayed a specialist, Will, and we're never a non-commissioned officer. But I think it's important that we realize that ineffective leadership and learning from ineffective leadership is as important as being led by effective leaders. Because I can speak personally. I've had a few ineffective leaders on both sides of the fence, and they have informed my leadership philosophy in the way that I would like to become a leader eventually in the fire service, of things that maybe I wouldn't take that approach myself.
Yep.
And you can learn valuable lessons from ineffective leadership if you're experiencing them or even if you're witnessing them. So I think that understanding what ineffective leadership looks like informs leadership as much as saying like that's who I want to be.
Yeah, I agree.
Look, there's a lot to unpack there, but I just want to throw some credit to Captain Sobel for a minute there. So look him up and read a little bit about him. He's not as bad of a guy as they may depict him.
I
to
refuse to believe it.
be. Okay.
No,
and Easy. I think some of the members of Easy Company actually credited him with the training, because even though it might have been not maybe some of the best choices, some of the members of Easy Company, I believe, said they would have taken more casualties if he wasn't so hard on them.
In the interviews at the end of the show, right? Or was it later on?
It was. This was in a couple of articles that I read.
Was it?
On Captain Sobel, and it was about his life, and
Right.
you know, and it made me appreciate Captain Sobel a little bit. But obviously, Dick Winters was just a more natural leaders.
Right.
I've read that book, Conversations with Dick Winters. Fantastic book. He's just a phenomenal leader, natural leader. You know, and maybe Captain Sobel wasn't just as natural, but Captain Sobel cared about his people. He's training them hard because
Right.
he cared about them. He wanted them to be effective, and he wanted them to survive. So I appreciate that. But, you know, obviously Dick Winters took those guys and just took them to another level.
Well, there can be also a difference between you can be an effective organizational leader and a poor combat leader. So you
Yeah.
can see that where Lieutenant Sobel might have been an effective developmental leader,
Yep.
but obviously would have been we never know, but
Yeah.
probably would have been a poor combat leader. Where, Dick Winters is the example of, they're sometimes isolated. The Jim Mattises, the H.R. McMasters that are both effective in organizational and combat leadership.
Yeah.
But you can see that in when Dick Winters talks about that other lieutenant when he sends him out to relieve Lieutenant Dyke, who has that complete spears.
Yeah.
So after, in the interviews from Band of Brothers, and in his book, Dick Winters says that Spears was an incredibly effective combat leader, but not someone he particularly liked or trusted otherwise.
Right.
That had some very questionable characteristics, but was undoubtedly a ruthlessly effective combat.
Right, and that's why he's like a break glass in case of war kind of guy.
Yes.
Right.
Which, I have a soft spot for that.
You need
but
some of those guys.
You do. You need them around. But, the thing is, leadership needs to be balanced.
Yeah.
You can't be too heavy in one area, right? And that's hard to strike a balance because we all have natural strengths and weaknesses, and we want to lean on our strengths because it's like a comfort zone. But,
Right.
Being balanced is important.
You also have natural passions and things that you have to do as being part of a leader that you don't care as much about. So
Right.
Making yourself care more about those things too.
Right. And what else did you ask Barry about? You brought something else up about that video. What was
I
it?
think I had said it's important to the collective suffering. I think was the 2 points. Was one, it's important to understand that ineffective leadership can guide your leadership philosophy as much as effective.
Effectively, yeah.
Yeah, that's important to understand and to either witness or experience. I've experienced it, and I think that looking back, it sucked at the time in multiple ways. But I think that that's important as you come up as your, develop your own leadership philosophy and come up as a leader is internalizing those experiences. You've experienced it. Everyone here has experienced. Nick has undoubtedly experienced poor leadership, right? And that informs your own, as you become, you develop your own business or you become a lieutenant. That informs your leadership experience as much as, experiencing great leaders because it develops a well-rounded individual.
Right. I think that's for folks that are trying to be leaders, I think part of that is to be an observer. There are lessons around us every day. There's leadership lessons around us every day, on duty and off duty. But sometimes, if you're not looking for them, you might not see them. And part of that is look at what's going on and think about it. Okay, look at the company officer and how he's interacting with his crew and how the crew is responding to him or her. Do they have a good team dynamic? Do they not? What happens when the officer leaves the room, kind of thing. How do they function as a team when the officer isn't there? There's just, and again, with poor leaders, observe them. Observe the effect they have and learn from that. And then learn from good leaders. Look at the effect that they have, right? I agree with you. Good and bad leadership are both important to your development.
I was kind of going to share the story, doing the episode on buy-in at some point, but not not only experienced poor leadership, but was a extremely poor leader. Like my first opportunity to lead as a young specialist for a machine gun team, and then
Yes.
my squad leader had a kid who had some birth complications right before deployment, so kind of got thrown into sharing squad leadership roles and trying to, and not having any experience, trying to emulate that the louder you are, the more control you have of things,
Right.
kind of leadership mentality. And it didn't take very long to sit back and realize, like, yeah, these people fucking hate me. And some of that, like, you know, probably still to this day, if you ask some of those people, and then realizing, like, actually caring about the people and like embracing the suck with the people, and like really like trying to like let people understand that, like, no, like you care about them, but also like this mission has to happen, kind of thing.
Yeah. Mission first, troops always.
I think that experience like forever changed my life, and it started out as like a really bad experience.
Yeah, but you learned from it. And that's the critical part, right? Is that we learn from our mistakes. You have to give yourself permission to fail, because failure is going to happen.
Right.
Okay? So when it happens, you own it.
Right.
And you learn from it, and you get better, right? There's no losing. There's only learning and winning, right? When I fail, I learn.
Right.
And when you look at things that way, it takes some of the anxiety out of failure. Not that we want to fail. Nobody wants to fail. Nobody plans on failing, but it's going to happen. So when
Barry
it
wants
happens,
to fail.
how do you handle it? Right? How do
do
you
wanna
handle
fail.
it? And we've seen people deflect and make excuses and blame. That's not building any trust. But when I stand up and take it right in the chest, that builds trust, because people are like, hey, okay, he failed, but how did he handle that situation? And this is something that you can take to the bank. It's not the crisis that defines you. It's your response to the crisis that defines you.
Yeah, 100%.
Right? Everybody can make a mistake. How do you handle yourself in that mistake?
Right.
That's what matters.
100%. And that's why we talked about it in our recent episode about failure. And I say jokingly, like, I want to fail, and I want my friends and family and loved ones to experience failure, because that informs and builds character.
Yeah.
It's very important. And I think, to your point, like, obviously you took ownership, which is one of the things we talked about during the failure episode. But taking ownership also informs, obviously, leadership. But the difference between formal and informal leadership, leaders and managers, and the difference between having authority and having influence.
Yeah. That's very different. You don't want to really rely on your authority. Did you ever hear anybody, hey, we're going to play the bugle game, right? It's whoever has more bugles is right.
Right.
And it's like, okay,
I'm out.
I hear you, but I'm out.
Right.
Like, I'll do what you want me to do, but you lost me.
Right.
You want people to respond because they don't want to let you down, because they believe in you and because they trust you.
Right.
Not because you have more rank than them. And that really matters. And I want to talk about, I know we all talked about reading, but I want to make another point about reading and about the importance of reading, because it gives you historical depth. When you, like, for instance, I read recently that I'm sure you guys have heard, you better have, of Admiral Nimitz, right? Everybody
Chester?
knows Admiral. There you go. Admiral Nimitz, okay? World War II admiral, legend. When he was an ensign, he grounded a ship, and he was court-martialed for it, okay? Now, he was court-martialed, but his career wasn't completely derailed, and he went on to become Admiral Nimitz. How? So this is interesting to me, because how humiliating must that be to ground a naval vessel?
Oh my God, I couldn't imagine.
And then to get court-martialed, and you're walking around like this actually happened, right? I mean, I know it's in history, but there was a day when this happened, and all the enlisted guys must have been looking at this guy, and all the other officers must have been like, what is up with this guy? And he went on to become Admiral Nimitz. So whatever mistake, and that gives me perspective.
Right.
Because whatever mistake I make, is it as bad as beaching a naval vessel? And that guy still went on to become Admiral Nimitz. So, maybe this little mistake I made over here isn't as big of a deal as I might think.
Right.
Or maybe your mistake isn't as big of a deal as you might think. I mean, General Grant, Union Army, he got disaffected with the Army when he was stationed in Washington State. started drinking heavily, and he had to resign. And then the Civil War broke out, and they brought him back in, and he went on to become General Grant. But he had some struggles.
Right.
He resigned and was drinking heavily. You would think, oh, my God, that's embarrassing, this guy. He went on to become General Grant. So
I think that's a good caveat because you have to have the historical context and the perspective, right? So
Right.
everyone has mentors.
Yeah.
Jim Mattis had mentors. Like none of these people would have become who they are without mentors.
correct.
So the last thing I wanted to talk about for today's segment, this will probably end up being a multiple segment show, as we had said,
Sure.
is mentorship. And why is that important? Because you have to find a mentor to help kind of guide you through no pun intended, guide you through the wilderness, to show you examples. Like you've had mentors. We consider you a mentor. Everyone here has had a mentor, and understanding that those mentors can be either in a position of authority or in a position of influence, and understanding like formal versus informal. Like the biggest mentor you might have in the firehouse might not be your company officer. It could be that senior man. So like why are mentors so important?
Because small trees grow faster next to big trees. It's as simple as that. You're not gonna become the best version of yourself on your own, right? People have mentored me. I think any great leader that I've ever followed has had mentors, because you just need perspective. You need somebody that's going to look at things differently, somebody that's got more life experience than you, more professional experience than you, that can just say, hey, think about this differently. Hey, you don't have to always do what they say, but you need to reflect upon their guidance.
Yeah.
I think that everybody just assumes that like General Mattis was born General Mattis, but he wasn't. How did he become that man, that leader? Through hard work.
Right.
Through listening to people, through accepting mentorship. That's a long road, right? And that's why I think, the journey of becoming a good leader doesn't really end. I am a student of the fire service until I retire. I am a student of leadership for my entire life, right? And if you view yourself in that way, you're more open to learning from others.
Yeah.
And I think one of the hallmarks that John had said is important as a young firefighter, but I think translates all the way through, is I also think that leaders still have to remain coachable. Like you have to have that intellectual, I guess, coachable in the sense that you always want to learn. Like you said, you're a student of the craft.
Yeah.
You should also always have this voracious intellectual pursuit to I always want to learn more. I want to learn something new.
We're all coachable athletes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's important. I don't think that you should ever at any point at any level of the leadership spectrum no longer be coachable.
I agree with you. And in fact, it's interesting that you say that. Like last night, my oldest friend, Paul DiRienzo, I went to his 4th degree black belt test. He's 4th degree black belt in jiu-jitsu, oldest friend of mine, very proud of him. He has a dojo out in Natick, Metro West Jiu-Jitsu Academy, and I went to his belt test last night. And I guess when you get to the 4th level, that you are now a master, okay? And the belt is black on the inside, red and white on the outside, okay? Red signifies that you're a master. So I guess from a 10th is the high level, right? So when you're red, all the levels above that have some form of red in the belt. That signifies that you're a master. But why white? White, do you know?
I'm guessing because it's the first belt you get.
That's exactly right. It's to suggest humility.
Yeah.
It's to signify that even though you're a master, no matter how high of a rank you attain, you're still a student of that craft. And that, I think, is important. I really like how they symbolize that.
Yeah.
So many parallels
Like
in jiu-jitsu that are so valuable.
Like the black on the inside,
question.
you're proud of your accomplishments, but to everybody else, hey, I know what I'm talking about, but I also am approachable and coachable and humble.
100%.
So-
that's great.
Having some experience in that world, every black belt that I know, but
Yep.
especially the high-level black belts that have been black belts throughout my training history, they've all said that the biggest relief when I got my black belt, it wasn't that I made it. It's like, okay, I'm a black belt now. I'm this jiu-jitsu master, or whatever craft it is that you're studying. It was, now I don't have to worry about becoming a black belt anymore. And now I can sit back and I can just learn.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so you're almost, the first gym that I walked through, it was just like, please check your ego at the door, right? And so, but you're always like going for more and more and more. You want, it's like it gets addictive. You're trying to attain all this knowledge. And obviously we're all competitive, right? Like you said, coachable athletes, we want to compete and do all these things. But once you get to that certain level, now, first of all, you just have a different look at the board, say, like the game. You view it differently, but it allows you that opportunity to open up and just continue to learn.
Right.
The pressure's kind of off in a sense.
I don't know if the chief knows. John's what belt are you?
Well, I'm like a 15-year blue belt, so it's I like to bounce in and out of things. I'm like the hobby king, and
but a decent amount of experience.
That's good.
I do, yeah.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah.
But again, that's yet another aspect that overlaps. That's a leadership thing.
Yeah.
Right? And that's another segment of society that you can see the parallels.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sure, John, like some of the practitioners you've seen, that's probably informed your leadership philosophy just by doing jiu-jitsu. Like there's so many, that's why I think like you have to be, in order to be a leader, you have to be well-rounded. Like your leadership philosophy can't just be informed by, this is what I've seen at the firehouse on the fireground.
Right.
Like it's informed by all these different aspects of your life, like jiu-jitsu being one of them.
I have some stories about, so when I went to UMass Amherst, I traveled backward to Ludlow because Gabriel Gonzaga was training out there. So we're going on a long time now, but he had just, at that time, I think he'd become like the UFC heavyweight champion. Mm-hmm. This guy was like, world famous jiu-jitsu practitioner. Mm-hmm. And so I went into his gym and I'm rolling with all these black belts. And I didn't really do too much gi. So I went in there and I was really getting slapped around quite a bit. Now he had black belts in there who were black belts, right? And they kind of ragdolled me, you know what I mean? They really were just using me as kind of like their puppet and dummy, so to speak, to practice moves, and I was fine with it, and I was competitive, but
they're ooky.
They were just absolutely killing. But then I had a chance to roll with Gabriel, and he let me work, and he didn't like beat on me too bad. Now this guy is also massive, right? But then he got to the point where then he was rolling with his black belts, right? And the levels of mastery. Yeah. And it's like I'm watching him roll with this guy, and he made him look how this guy made me look. Like I was at the beginning, you know? And so my point is like these levels of mastery and seeing guys who are like, you look at and you think they're at the top, yet they're still able to be humbled. And even like Gabriel himself, right, and we talk about losses and it's win or learn, right? Yeah. And I mean, that guy has done some major learning. Right. And that's where it puts him to be, very humble guy. Very humble guy for a guy that, I mean, I was 19 years old knocking on his door to go train with him in Team Link back then. Yeah,
but seeing that humility probably makes you want to follow him, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
So no, absolutely.
That's huge.
Yeah.
I also think there's something to be said for so you say you're like a 15-year blue belt, right?
Yeah.
But you're happy with what you're doing, or is it something like you wanted to strive? You eventually want to be a black belt, or
eventually I will. It's just that life's taken me in different directions, and it's but I always have like that. I always have like a good solid foundation base.
Yeah.
And I don't. It's crazy because everybody that I used to train with, right, guys that I'd be very heavily competitive with, they're all black belts now, and it's like then I go in and I train with them, I'm like, wow, these guys just like. I mean, I used like I said, used to compete with these guys, and now they slap me all around, and it's like, and some of these guys have always been smaller than me, and they still slap me around, and it's like, it's like, wow, it's like, these guys are small, but they're giants, and and we have fun doing it, and I don't know, it's.
I think so. I mean, I guess the point I was getting at is maybe it doesn't necessarily apply, but you don't always have to have the rank or the belt to be a good leader or be a master of your craft. And I think like in the fire service, those senior men are a good example of that. Some of them maybe just never could or whatever, or didn't have the motivation to promote. Some of them just really like and know that they can be a very good influence on the fire service in that specific position.
Well, I think that's
That's
actually
a
a very
great
important point is that leadership. I'm sorry, John, did you?
No, I'm just going to say that's a great point because whether or not I ever want to promote, whether it be in jiu-jitsu or in or in the fire service, it doesn't mean that I don't want to be always getting better or to not become a leader.
Yep.
And I've said this on the show multiple times is that leadership has to rise from the unranked guys. There has to be leadership throughout the chain, even in the chain of just firefighters from junior to senior.
Yeah.
And then, obviously up through the actual rank guys. You have to have leadership at all levels. And I don't know if I ever necessarily want to promote. It's like I do and I don't. It's something that when I get there, I'll know. But I do know that I want to be a guy that people come to.
I think like staying at that rank can allow you to become a real master of your craft and not have to worry about the things that come with promoting. Like, not that obviously officers aren't masters of their craft, but like say like a senior man on the rescue that just spends their career because that's where they love to be and they can master all the parts of that and they can influence people and they can just do that job that they love, which makes them more effective.
And when a chief sees that guy come around the corner at an incident, it makes him very happy.
Yeah.
We like having those guys around.
Right.
So that's a very important point, is that leadership is not about rank, it's action. Yeah. It's action. It's what you do. Leadership can be expressed at any level. It might look a little different, but it's the same thing. So so I remember when I started, I had a particular crew, and I thought the guy who expressed the most leadership was the guy that only had a couple more years on than me, but he was the one who really took me under his wing and really showed me the way and looked out for me. And, I'm eternally grateful for that, and I don't forget that. And that's what leadership looks like at the 2-year guy level, at the 3-year guy level. It's like, hey, when somebody comes in under you, show them the way, connect with them, make them feel welcome, right? Show them where the locker room is. Communicate, hey, this is what the lieutenant likes. This is what the lieutenant wants.
Right.
That each of us, I think, in the fire service needs to choose where our best position is. Not everybody is made to be the chief of the department, right? Because that's the hardest job in the fire service, all right? Not everybody is cut out to be a captain or a lieutenant. So if you want to be a private, you don't want to get promoted, that's great. We need that. Some people make lieutenant and they're like, this is where I belong. That's great. We need good people at every single level.
Exactly.
You have to find out, where's my sweet spot in this? Right? It's not a rat race to the top, or at least it shouldn't be.
Right. And I think that goes back to we talked before about finding your mentor. And one of the things I think I had said is finding the mentor that is what you aspire to be, because there's mentors in all different aspects of every job.
Yeah.
And finding that mentor that is what you aspire to be is important. And I think, like, to your question about mentorship, having a mentor is hugely important, because we can't all be General Madison, read 3,000 books.
Yeah, I know.
And navigating the subject of leadership is huge. And if you don't have a mentor that's already done a little bit of that work for you and can just pass basically the abridged version onto you so that you can then take that and then expound upon it, it becomes really hard to become effective, whether it be at leadership or at your job or whatever it is, without having that mentor that you can basically take their knowledge,
Yeah, a mentor can accelerate you down that path.
Exactly.
And that's huge. And reading can do the same thing. And if you can do both, then you're really going to be in good shape.
Yeah. So I think that's a good place to leave it. There's one point I want to make before we transition to the ever important question of the day.
Okay.
All right.
But you might. So when we're talking about like finding a mentor, so I think it's evident probably to everyone here and to probably like half the audience that I think everyone here considers you a mentor, and that's one of the reasons why we invited you on the show. But you might not even like remember this incident.
Probably not.
But Will and I, like, it really. I think what I'm talking about before I even say it.
Yeah.
To this day is like a very formative moment for us. So we were right around the corner from a struck box.
I think we've mentioned this on the podcast at least once or twice.
We fucked it up. Like we were on Cambridge Street and it was like
one of Barry's first times at the radio.
Was this the box? Oh, anyway,
Yeah.
go ahead.
So
I can't quite.
I was so focused on like, hey, give the incoming companies like a good initial report and don't sound like an idiot that we forgot like some of the other pieces of the puzzle. And like you showed up on scene and like, it was obvious that like certain parts weren't done. And we were both like, oh, Fred's going to think we're fucking stupid. Like we fucked this up. And you were immediately like,
which you did.
You probably got back in the car and like, these fucking guys.
I thought we had something at engine
But
3.
you immediately were like, hey, like, did it make or break the mission? Like we would have adapted. And instead of like making it like where we were afraid to do that again, like it fired us up to want to do it again. Okay. So you probably don't even remember that.
I vaguely remember, yes.
Yeah.
I don't remember the specific details, but I remember the box.
We were a couple streets away,
Yep.
and because we were so close, we didn't gear up and then go. And so when we got there, it was like a mess of like trying to gear up, trying to give a report, trying to see what was going on all at the same time, and ineffectively
doing all of it.
So you have young guys that are desperately trying to do the right thing, and they might have just fumbled the execution a little bit. That's handled differently than, a different situation where you get guys that are making mistakes because they're negligent or complacent or because they don't care or because they're not trying. That's a whole different scenario.
Right.
You got young guys that are out there trying to do the right thing, and they fumble the ball. They just need a little guidance.
Right. Yeah.
So you give it to them. And I think that's what leaders do, right? Treat other people how you want to be treated.
Right.
So if I was in that situation, I've been in that situation. I've had a couple of chiefs pull me aside at times when I was younger and have conversation, be like, hey, look, next time I understand what you were trying to do. I want you to think about this. I had one say, hey, I'm going to give you that father-son talk, okay? And I was like, okay.
That's the worst part, is disappointing you.
That's it. It's the disappointment. Hurts.
He's mad at you.
I'd rather you just yell at me.
It's dreadful, but it built my trust in that deputy. I didn't want to let that deputy down. So I try to pass on that
I think that's
style.
exactly
we
what
didn't want to let you down next time.
Yeah. And I've had deputies take an opposite tact with me and dress me down, and that broke trust. And that broke my confidence in that person, and it broke the team down. So I see how the two different styles affect the team. So I try to choose the more positive way.
Right. So, good. All right. I thought long and hard about this. There's 2
Oh,
questions of the day.
2.
There's one for the group and there's one for you. Okay.
Oh, jeez.
Nick, do you have a mic?
Pressure there.
No.
Let's do it.
All right.
So,
do you have a prop?
nope.
This is going to get dicey.
I just also want you to know, Chief, the real reason we brought you on this podcast is so that next time on the fire ground, we don't get stuck outside. Just remember that. All right? Interior.
Yeah, got it.
All right.
Got it.
Thank you.
So,
Aggressive interior.
this is a scenario-based question.
Yeah.
So, you can only recommend one, right?
This is going to be so easy.
I don't know.
Oh, is this for?
Yeah, it's for him.
Oh,
You can
I
only
already know
recommend
what
one,
you have in your
but it's
hand.
not just for the fire service. You have a person in front of you. This is your enduring legacy. You only can recommend one of these to help guide their leadership philosophy.
I knew it.
You can either recommend.
So okay.
This also includes extreme ownership.
So sorry. The first book Barry just passed me is Call Sign Chaos by, apparently he doesn't like to be called Mad Dog Mattis, but Jim
He doesn't,
Mattis.
no.
Jim Mattis.
I'm going to do it anyway.
Okay. So, all right. Yep.
This is a paired couple. I don't actually have a paperback copy of Extreme Ownership. I have the Kindle. So Dichotomy and Extreme Ownership,
Okay.
or Step Up and Lead by Frank Fischisi.
Out of those choices,
guarantee
That's
it.
all you have, and it can't just be. This is for a young leader, not just in the fire service. You can only.
so there's no question. Call sign chaos.
Really?
Oh, shit. We
Really?
were both wrong.
100%.
Wow.
Call sign
We
chaos.
talked about this beforehand, and we thought for sure you were going to do. So, but although I will say, like, the conversation earlier about him applying the principles of leadership specifically to the fire service.
That is one of the
Takes
best
away
fire
from the-
service leadership books. But Call Sign Chaos is my second favorite leadership book.
Okay.
So out of those choices, that would be
What
it.
is your first?
Funny you should ask.
Oh, shit.
That's what we're doing.
And again, we're going to put a link to where you can either view or buy all these books on our website.
Yes.
And all the videos that we played today
Right.
are going to be in the video description.
So my number one book recommendation for all leaders everywhere around the world is The Leader's Bookshelf. And it's by Admiral, I'm not quite sure about the pronunciation, Stardavis. Admiral
I've
Stardivus.
never even honestly never heard of this this book. So
that book is full of
Have you read
wisdom.
this?
I mean,
I have not.
pure wisdom. So I have gleaned a lot from that book, and I would highly recommend that book. And then Call Sign Chaos is a close second. Just
Awesome.
full of wisdom and experience. Just leaders that are just on another level.
I don't see any pictures in this book. I don't know.
yeah.
Yeah.
Might be
I don't know if
tough
my
for me.
kid's gonna appreciate
Yeah.
that one at bedtime.
That's
So-
actually a book about other books. Quite interesting.
Yeah.
So that will be our first. We're starting to do book recommendations and build
Oh.
a bookshelf on the website.
Oh,
So this will be one of our first book recommendations. So it's The Leader's Bookshelf by Admirable.
The
Admiral
admirable
James
admiral.
The admirable admiral.
Starvardis.
Hey.
So that'll be on the website.
all
So I'm
right.
passing it out.
Good deal.
And my second question of the day is for everyone.
Hang on, sorry. Before you start that, what do you have bookmarked here, Chief?
I review my highlights from time to time. I always highlight the books that I read.
Okay.
And every now and then I'll grab them off the shelf. And I don't even remember where I was, but I grabbed that off the shelf. I must have been
Here we go.
reviewing that.
Good leaders have the ability to place themselves and their lives in the larger context of the world, indeed of the universe. They appreciate how small we are, how trivial our day-to-day concerns are in the face of the enormity
All right.
of the natural world.
All right. That's
All right.
deep.
That is deep.
I
That's
like
deep.
that.
So my second question of the day, which is for everyone, but we'll start with you since you're our guest.
Okay.
If you could have never been in the fire service, what other job or career would you have liked to pursue?
I would have stayed full-time military or law enforcement. Yeah. And you know, and if I stayed full-time military, I don't know what, I wouldn't have stayed full-time fire service. I think I would have went something in the operational realm. I don't know what, but something in the operational realm.
Is this like you could have your like?
Yeah, your other dream career that you always been like, man, it would have been really cool to do that.
Go ahead, John.
Yeah, you can just stick me right on the farm.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, just own a giant swath of land and live right off of it. And that's it.
That's a good one.
Love it.
Yeah.
Man, that's tough because I actually never had any intention or a real desire to be in the fire service. From the time I was knee high, was going to be doing the job I did in the Army.
Mm-hmm.
And what actually turned me off to the Army, ironically, was the leadership and the people that gained rank in the not all of them, like not that anybody's watching this other than 4 people, but I had some like really good squad leaders and stuff. But what I noticed in the Army, and like when I said like my failure of leadership, was that style.
Yep.
And I really didn't like it. And it seemed that the higher rank people got, the more of it there was. I always said it was the kids that got bullied in high school that ended up becoming high-ranking members and just yelling at people in the military.
We actually had the same saying in the Air Force.
Yeah.
It's like all the nerds that did everybody friends with them.
Yeah. So that's ultimately what turned me off to the Army. So I don't know. I when I got out, I was like you, Barry. Like I lost might not be the right word, but I wanted to do all of the exciting shit all the time. I almost went to Miami to try and join the Coast Guard to do like drug running busts, and it would definitely be something in the trigger puller realm.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's a good one.
But not the police, because they just write speeding tickets.
Nah, I don't know. My grandfather was a police officer, so
In Cambridge?
I grabbed Harvard University.
Really?
So I thought about that too. So actually, funny story. When I first moved up here, I'm from Florida.
Yep.
And one of the things I thought was coming out of the military was that I would come up and maybe try and take the test to be on like the police force. And then I realized that it really is just like 90% writing tickets or.
Yeah. Well, back then I thought it was all about like chasing bad guys all the time. And I thought that
Yeah.
sounded cool.
That's what I thought. Even like
Yeah.
getting on a SWAT team, but like they just negotiate with people for 6 hours. Like I want to kick the door and then be inside,
I want to assault.
yeah. I want to pull the trigger, but in a legal way.
Well,
yeah.
Of course.
Of course. That's why we have the disclaimer at the beginning of the show. Everything on the show is legal, according to our
If you could
attorney that's on retainer.
if you could raid bad dudes, fix them, and then like put the fires out they started, that
if
would
they're
be my
bad,
dream job.
if they're bad, I have no intent of.
Yeah, but if you
he
can take
stopped
them, make them
breathing.
good, and make them good products of society, that's a positive. That's a net gain. That's a net positive.
I think some people just need to be shot in the face.
Well, this is true. I don't know about that, but I can't get with that.
Bin Laden, right? I mean, some people just need to be removed.
Ben
from
Laden
yeah,
had to be
yeah.
dealt with.
Yeah.
All right.
He had to
Okay.
be dealt
All right.
with.
There we go.
So I think that's as close as you're going to get from
yeah,
a bear.
from a yeah.
That was a good way to put it.
As
Chief.
I said,
Yeah.
everything here is legal, and so I have two, which is like one makes more sense for me, which I would have loved to be a state police K-9 officer.
Wow.
I still do.
Okay. It's a good deal, yeah.
Yeah. And the other one, which not a lot of people know, I don't even think you know this. I actually used to really want to be like a professional landscape guy, but not for just like owning my own property.
Yeah.
Like doing baseball fields, like all the designs, like working at Fenway or soccer stadiums.
Okay.
And in high school, I actually reached out to the guy that does the Fisher Cat Stadium in New Hampshire. And he told me, like, because I wanted to get into professional landscape management,
Yeah.
and took me through like the whole system of how they prep the field, the different types of grass they use, the different mowers and blades, and like I used to do patterns in my grass at home in high school and like try and replicate all that stuff. So I still like like maintaining my lawn. Sucks now I have a German Shepherd that destroys it. But yeah, I used to I wanted to be like a professional, like major minor league field management.
That's interesting.
That is, I literally would never have pegged you. If I wasn't something in the operational realm,
Jesus
I
Christ.
also had a huge interest in like marine biology, I like the ocean.
That's cool.
So if I was like gonna go to the soft side, that'd be where I'd go.
All right. Last but not least, it doesn't matter if you
Dream job.
hadn't pursued film, right? And but if you firefighting was always my dream since I was a little kid. But if you, for whatever reason, film, cinema, media production was taken away from you, have you ever had another?
No, you don't understand. Like, this is the farm for me.
Yeah.
This is the
Okay. All right.
landscaping for me. What I was doing before the car business.
Well, what's the second best?
What's the second best choice?
Oh, buddy, I'm telling you, really, I don't know.
That's okay though. Just being like, this is it.
The risk, though.
It's that or unemployment.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, yeah, it's like this or I choose death.
okay.
I like it.
Yeah.
Well, hey,
No.
that's
Savage.
passion
I like it.
right there.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's it for today's episode.
Thanks for coming
Cool.
on, Chief.
Yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
Thanks
thanks,
for-
Chief. That was
Thanks-
awesome.
Thanks again for having me.
Thanks for the wisdom sharing.
Yeah. And I will say, I've been meaning to just do this for a few episodes, and it seems fitting that to do it while you're here. We just sincerely want to say, and to you, to thank you, to everyone that supported us so far. Like, this project was just an idea that we had to, like, try and positively influence the fire service among like young, passionate guys that care and like want to make the fire service a better place. But like the amount of guys and gals that have gone out on a limb, reached out to just like support us and say, hey, what you guys are doing is cool, keep doing it, has been overwhelming. And we just want to say thank you to everyone and to you. Like you're our first guest, like you didn't have to believe in us and you did from day one. And Nick, for taking a chance on us. So we just want to, we have a long way to go, but the amount of support has been overwhelming, and we're excited to see where the future goes.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Good job. Keep trying to be a positive influence. It's a
If
good thing.
you would like to maintain our thanks and support, please subscribe to our channel on YouTube and follow us on our social media at JobTlks. Again, JobTlks. Like our videos. Please leave us a comment or feedback in any way, shape, or form. And the biggest thing that you can do is share. Share the videos, share the post, share the love of the job. That's it.
Well put.
All right, guys.
You want to do your job talks now?
JobTlks out.
Yeah. JobTlks out.
All right. It's not real until job.
Yes, it doesn't end until he does that.